Listen, in the first 60 minutes after everything goes sideways, your brain is going to lie to you. It's going to tell you to run, to call everyone you love, to post on social media asking if anyone else saw that flash of light or heard that explosion. It's going to tell you to be helpful, to be a hero, to get in your car and drive somewhere safer. And if you listen to that voice, if you follow those instincts that feel so completely reasonable in the moment, you're going to dramatically decrease your chances of seeing day 3. Because here's what nobody tells you about disasters. The first hour isn't when most people die from the disaster itself. It's when they die from their own panic-driven decisions, from doing things that feel right but are catastrophically wrong. The survivors aren't the ones who moved fastest or helped most people or had the biggest hearts. They're the ones who did less, not more. They're the ones who recognize that in those first 60 minutes, action without thought is just another word for suicide. And by the end of this, I'm going to walk you through the exact 5-step protocol that replaces panic with the kind of discipline that actually keeps you alive. But first, you need to understand the 7 mistakes that kill capable people before they even realize they're in trouble. Mistake number 1 kills you quietly, and it happens in 2 parts that most people don't realize are connected. The second something goes wrong, your hand reaches for your phone. It's automatic. Explosion in the distance, you're calling your spouse. Lights go out and stay out, you're texting your parents. And here's what happened during Hurricane Katrina within the first 90 minutes. The cellular network in New Orleans didn't gradually degrade, it collapsed completely. Millions of people had the exact same instinct at the exact same moment, and the towers still standing simply couldn't handle the load. But before the network died, people burned through 20, 30, 40% of their battery trying to connect to a system that was already gone. That battery became the most valuable thing they owned over the next 72 hours. Their only access to information, to light, to any emergency broadcast that might tell them where the water distribution points were or which routes were still passable. But here's the second part that makes this mistake lethal. Every time your phone tries to connect, it's pinging towers, creating a data trail of exactly where you are and when. In the early stages of a breakdown, you've just announced your location and the fact that you're active and mobile. So here's the move. Airplane mode immediately. Preserve that battery. Except that for the next few hours, you are alone with your decisions. And it's not just about your phone. It's about staying quiet entirely. Don't discuss your plans with the people around you. Don't post on social media if it's somehow still working. Don't compare notes about what everyone thinks is happening. Every word you speak gives away information. If you announce you're headed to your parents' place, that you keep supplies in your car, that you have a backup location somewhere, you've just told everyone listening your entire plan. The people around you in the first hour are unknowns, so you become a receiver, not a transmitter. You watch who's panicking and who's calm. You listen to rumors and find patterns. You notice who's moving with purpose. That's intelligence. So you stay quiet, observe, and give away nothing. Mistake number 2 feels like the most urgent thing in the world. You've protected your phone, you're staying quiet, but every instinct is screaming at you to move, to get out, to go somewhere else because this location suddenly feels like a trap. And during the first hour of the September 11th attacks, the people who survived in the towers were largely split into 2 groups, the ones who moved early but deliberately after assessing their options, and the ones who stayed put when staying put made tactical sense based on where they were and what they could see. The ones who died in stairwells weren't always on the impact floors. Many were people who panicked late, who bolted without information and got caught in crushing crowds, or chose routes that were already compromised. Some who were below the impact zone died because they stayed too long waiting for official instructions instead of trusting what they could see. The lesson isn't never move, it's don't move until you understand what you're moving into. When you bolt in the first hour, you leave a defendable position for complete exposure. You abandon resources you can verify for resources you hope exist somewhere else. You enter an environment filled with other panicked people, and that's where trampling happens, where fights break out, where you become visible to everyone watching. So instead, you make yourself still. You find a position with 2 exits if possible, away from windows if there's been an explosion. You get below street level if there's been a flash that might indicate something nuclear because the shockwave could still be coming. You wait, you watch, you gather information from what you can actually see and hear. You give yourself 10, 15, 20 minutes of observation before you commit to movement. That patience might be the only thing that keeps you from walking directly into whatever's killing everyone else. But here's the mistake that's going to hurt your conscience more than any other, and most survival advice won't tell you this part honestly. Mistake number 3 happens while you're observing, because you're going to see people who need help, someone injured, trapped, calling out. Now listen carefully, because this isn't about being cold or telling you to ignore suffering. In most disasters, especially in the hours and days after the immediate threat passes, mutual aid and helping each other is exactly what saves communities. People working together, sharing resources, pulling each other out of rubble. That's what resilience looks like. But the first hour is different because you don't yet know if the threat is over or ongoing, and that changes everything about the math of helping. During the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, the survivors who made it out of the kill zone often had to make brutal calculations. Do I stop for this person who can't move? Or do I keep going and send help back when I'm in cover? The ones who stopped in the open to render aid while the shooting was still active often became casualties themselves. The ones who got to safety first and then organized help saved more people total, even though it felt wrong in the moment. In the first hour, if you stop to render serious aid to someone who's critically injured, you're now stationary in a potentially active threat environment. You're focused on them instead of what's developing around you. You might be using supplies on someone who isn't movable while missing the window to help multiple people later when you actually have resources and a secure position. The question isn't should I help people, it's can I help this specific person right now without creating 2 casualties instead of 1. If it's family, the calculation changes. If it's a stranger with serious trauma and you have no supplies, no secure location, and no understanding of whether you're even safe, the answer might be to make them as comfortable as possible in under 30 seconds, mark their location mentally, and commit to sending help when help actually exists. Mistake number 4 has killed more people in wildfire evacuations than the fires themselves. The moment things go bad, a massive percentage of people try to get to their cars. And here's what happened during the 2018 Camp Fire in Paradise. The town had about 26,000 residents and exactly 4 main evacuation routes. When the fire hit, thousands of people had the same idea simultaneously. The result was complete gridlock on roads that were already narrow and winding. People died in their vehicles, trapped in traffic surrounded by fire on all sides, with full tanks of gas that became completely irrelevant because there was physically nowhere to go. Some burned to death within sight of clear road ahead that they couldn't reach. Thousands of people funneling into the same routes that were congested on a normal day. Add in accidents from panic driving, abandoned vehicles, road damage from whatever just happened, and you've created a situation where nobody can move. Your car stops being an asset and becomes a cage. A person on foot in an urban environment can move through spaces vehicles can't touch. Buildings, alleys, drainage systems, parks. You maintain maximum flexibility. You're also far less visible. A person on foot looks like they might not have much. A person in a vehicle looks like they have fuel and supplies worth taking. So unless you're rural and your vehicle's immediately accessible and the roads are genuinely open, which you can verify with your own eyes, trying to reach your car in the first hour is usually just volunteering for a slower death. Mistake number 5 turns capable people into slow-moving targets. You want to take things with you, important things, and you start throwing items into bags. Documents, electronics, clothes, food, water, tools, medications, sentimental items, just one more thing, and the bag gets heavier until you can barely lift it and you definitely can't move fast. During the collapse of Aleppo, the civilians who made it through checkpoints and urban combat zones successfully were often the ones traveling lightest, the ones who could sprint between cover, fit through tight spaces, climb when they needed to. The ones weighted down with bags of possessions were slower, more visible, and more often stopped. The professionals have a hard number, 25 pounds maximum for a sustainment load, and that's if you're in decent shape. In the first hour, when you might need to sprint or hide, think even lighter. Water is priority 1, 2 liters maximum. Then a small medical kit, just basics, tourniquets, pressure bandages, pain relief. A light source, fire starting capability, a basic defensive tool if legal and practical. Mistake number 6 happens because you want to trust that someone in authority has this under control. You're going to hear official announcements, maybe on emergency broadcast, maybe from police or fire personnel, maybe from building management. The message will be some version of remain calm, shelter in place, help is on the way. And the people making those announcements in the first hour often know exactly as much as you do, which is almost nothing. They're operating from templates designed for specific scenarios, and if this disaster doesn't fit the template, the advice can be catastrophically wrong. Think about what happened at the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016. Initial police communication told people to stay down and wait for officers to clear the building. That was standard active shooter protocol, and from a crowd management perspective, it made sense to prevent crowds from running into gunfire. But the shooter wasn't moving through the building, he was holding hostages in a bathroom, and some of the people who waited instead of escaping through available exits when they had the chance ended up trapped for 3 hours. The official guidance wasn't wrong from a crowd control perspective, but for individuals with clear routes out, waiting was the worst option. Official messaging in the first hour is optimized for preventing mass panic across thousands of people, not for your specific survival in your specific location. If telling everyone to shelter prevents a stampede, they'll say it even if sheltering is wrong for some people. If admitting the true scope would cause riots, they'll minimize it. Your survival is a statistic to them, so you treat official announcements as one data point among many. You compare what they're saying to what you're seeing with your own eyes. If they say shelter but you smell gas or see fire spreading, you make your own call. If they say evacuate, but the routes are obviously jammed, you adapt. And mistake number 7 is the one almost nobody even realizes they're making. And it's the one that determines whether you enter hour 2 with options or already trapped. Most people in the first hour never stop to actually assess their situation. They react, they move, they help, they gather stuff, they follow instructions, but they never take even 5 minutes to create mental space for clear thinking. They skip the step that matters most, deliberately pausing to understand what's happening and what their actual options are. And here's why this invisible mistake is so deadly. How you spend the first hour doesn't just affect your immediate survival, it sets your mental framework for the next 3 days. If you spend it in reactive panic mode, that becomes your operating system, and every decision gets worse as you get tired. If you spend it creating even a small window for deliberate assessment, that discipline carries forward and compounds. This is the part almost every other survival video skips, the exact mental checklist that turns panic into repeatable discipline. Here's a framework that fixes all 7 of these traps. First, you establish your information baseline. Ask yourself 3 questions. What do I know for certain versus what am I guessing? What are the immediate physical threats I can verify versus the potential ones people are talking about? Has the threat stopped or is it ongoing? Don't move to step 2 until you spent at least 5 minutes on this, because decisions based on rumors get people killed. Second, you identify your actual assets. What do I have on me right now that extends my ability to survive and make decisions? Not what I wish I had, what I actually have. Battery percentage on your phone, water, medical supplies, cash, tools, knowledge of the area. That's your starting resource pool, and you don't waste it on emotional decisions. Third, you map your options with real specificity. If I stay in this building, what happens in the next 4 hours based on what I know? If I move, where exactly would I go? What route would I take? And what would improve? You need at least 2 options, preferably 3. Don't just say, I'll go home. That's not a plan. The plan is, I'll move on foot using side streets to my apartment 6 blocks north, which has water and supplies, and I know the building has 2 exits and isn't visible from main roads. And fourth, you prioritize immediate needs in this order. Safety from active threats first, then water source, then defensible shelter out of sight. Not food. Most people can go 3 days without food and be fine. But water matters within 12 hours, and the position where you're not visible matters immediately. And fifth, you decide whether you're operating solo or linking up with others. Both are viable. Solo means maximum speed and flexibility, but also maximum vulnerability if you're injured. Group means shared resources and security, but more visibility. If you're going to team up, assess who around you is calm, who has skills, who's making smart decisions. You're looking for people who aren't frozen or hysterical, who are helping effectively without getting overwhelmed, who are thinking ahead. Those are potential allies. This creates a split that starts in the first hour and just keeps widening. On one side are people who made panic errors, phone dead, stuck in traffic, carrying too much, helped impulsively, announced plans, followed bad instructions. By hour 12, they're casualties or completely dependent on aid that might not come. On the other side are the people who stayed disciplined, who moved deliberately, kept minimal gear, stayed quiet, trusted their own assessment. They enter hour 2 with options intact, and that gap just keeps expanding.